Hi, today I have with me a daughter of an NFL player, Ron McDole, who played for my Buffalo Bills and the Redskins and a couple other teams as well. And so Ron was an all-star defensive end. He was the second team all AFL for the whole decade defensive end, and he played for 18 years, which is amazing thinking of like most people who play that long are kickers or punters, but this guy was on the line in the trenches. And his nickname was the Dancing Bear. So we'll ask about that and a bunch of other stuff. So thanks so much for coming, Tammy.
You're so welcome.
All right. So first off, tell me about growing up as a kid of an NFL player.
Well, I honestly can't tell you what it's like not to grow up as a kid as an NFL player because he played from the day I was born until I was 18.
Wow, yeah.
So he played until I went to college. Um, it was definitely different, but I didn't know it for like the longest time. It was just dad going to work because
Right.
he would go to practice and it would be, like a 9 to 5 kind of job. And the only difference was on the weekends, depending on what era we're talking about, he would be gone for the whole weekend when he was with the Bills. Because a lot of times when they went out west to save money in the AFL, they would play a whole bunch of West Coast area teams. So they would stay out almost like baseball. They would stay out there for like a week and they would play one team on one weekend and one team on the other weekend and then come home. Um, with the Redskins, when I was old enough to kind of know what he was doing, um, he was just gone on, he had depends on if it was a home game or away game. He either left on Friday or he left on Saturday. He was always home on Sunday, unless it was a Monday game, and then he was home on Tuesday.
Right.
So
Cool.
it's just the way my life was.
Now, did he take the off season off, or was he one of those guys like in the old days that sold cars or whatever during the off season?
Oh well, you got to realize back in the day, sound really old when I say that, but they all had games. They all had off season. They had to, they made $13,000 a year. So they all had kids and and wives and
Right.
houses and things. So he always had an off season job. My dad actually has a degree in industrial arts from the University of Nebraska.
Uh-huh.
So he was going to be a shop teacher. But what he did in college, he started it, he would buy houses, fix them up, and flip them. That's how he made money. So when he went to Buffalo, he went into business with Ernie Warlick, flipping houses for a bit, and then he and L.B. Miller started a house building business, and they build houses.
Okay.
And then he got into we lived on 100 acres with two barns in Buffalo, and he turned one of the back barns into a workshop. And he took over a subsidiary of Lock, I think, what was the name of Wayside Furniture? I'm not exactly sure, but it was making library furniture.
Uh-huh.
So he started making library furniture in the back barns. And then when we moved to Virginia, we knew we were going to move to Virginia for good because New York wouldn't give him a loan to keep his business going
Hmm.
and expand, but Virginia would because he was now playing for the Redskins. So he had Ron McDole Library Furniture in Winchester, Virginia for about 8 years.
Okay.
And when that was done, he worked for Annandale Millwork. He worked together with Pat Fisher, who was his buddy from Nebraska. They grew up together. He was a realtor. They would buy it, dad would fix it, they would sell it. So he has always done construction, building, all that sort of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I know. On the back, I'm a big football card collector. On the back of most cards is like, this guy sells insurance during the summer or whatever. So it sounds like your dad did a lot of stuff. That's really neat.
If it had to do with building, construction, remodeling, yes, he did.
Cool.
That was his main love. Um, we lived in a house in New York that was 265 years old,
Uh-huh.
and we remodeled it. He remodeled it. We got to paint our rooms, but he taught all of us kids how to. We all knew how to paint. We all knew how to lay sheetrock, knew how to tile, knew how to sand. So we had the only thing that I wouldn't touch is electricity, major electricity. I'd put a light bulb in, or a fan or something like that, or gas. Nope, nope, not touching that. But
What
he would sometimes he would just draw on the wall. This is how your plumbing needs to be, and we would just follow it and do it. So yeah, that it was always he was very hands on. He was very much a builder at heart, and that's what he did. When we retired, he still did it.
neat. Now, growing up, did you guys go to the games, or did he just go off to a game and come home, and or did you go to the rock pile or whatever and go to the games?
In fact, I've never been to the rock pile
Oh, wow.
because when Dad played for Buffalo, I was like from 2 to 10. My mom wasn't taking us. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. She wasn't
Hmm.
taking us.
Yeah.
She went to all the games.
Okay.
When we went to Washington, a bunch of the wives would take one game in New York, and they'd all go to New York. And Dad was used to laughing, goes, "Well, we better win so we have money when we come home," because the ladies would go for the weekend. We went to one game a year, um, because we were all playing sports. And again, my mom didn't want to handle 4 kids at a game.
Right.
And but we all were playing sports. Like I played soccer tournaments, so I was normally playing soccer. But mainly when we went to Washington, I was the oldest kid. So I babysat. I'd go to Mark Mosley's house and watch his 3 kids. And sometimes the Dusicks would drop off their 4 kids. And sometimes Dave Butts would drop off his kid. And I would just babysit all day Sunday, spend the night. Mark had a radio show in Herndon. So he would just drop me off at school on his way into the radio show.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
made money.
Yeah.
I could watch him on TV and make money. Yeah, I was okay with that.
Yeah. Nice. So he played for the Bills during the 60s, and then they kind of like decided he was too old or something at age 31. And then I'm kind of upset because the Bills could have got 8 more years of great play, but they got rid of him, and he went to that the George Allen over the hill gang, right?
Correct. So he and I can remember my memory of this. I was 10. All I remember is mom and dad running around the house trying to get dad dressed like nicely, like in ties and coats and stuff. And I was like, what's going on? My mom goes, your father got traded to the Redskins. I'm like, what's traded and who's the Redskins, right? Like, I didn't know anything like that.
Yeah,
So, from what I understand, of course, I learned this afterwards because I helped dad write his book, was that they were rebuilding in Buffalo. They were not winning back in the late 60s, 68, 69, 70. They were not the highest ranking team in the league.
right.
They weren't powerhouses like they were back in the early mid 60s. So they were getting rid of everybody. And the problem with it was, from what I understand, of course, John Roush's son disagrees with me, but supposedly he publicly trashed my dad and Paul McGuire, saying that we were washed up and they weren't good anymore.
Hmm.
And but I think he also knew that George Allen had been talking to Ralph Wilson, saying we want Ron McDole, we want Ron McDole, and Wilson didn't want to let him go.
Hmm.
And so he finally talked him into letting him go. Roush got rid of him. Roush, I think, got fired for it,
Hmm.
not for just getting rid of him, but for bad mouthing. You don't take one of the stars of the Bills era in Buffalo and trash him. You just don't.
Yeah.
Especially when he was still playing well. But so yeah, he went to Washington. So we started, the way that worked is we still had his business in Buffalo and we still had that house in Buffalo. So dad would go to camp in July. Mom would pack up all his kids and the cats and the dogs and everybody else, and we'd move to Virginia. We'd start school in Virginia, go to school till Christmas break. Uh, Mom would pack all of his kids and the cats and the dogs, and we'd move back to Buffalo. Normally, Dad was in playoffs, so he didn't come with us.
Okay.
One year it was in the Super Bowl, so Mom dropped us off, and she went to LA.
Right.
But Yeah, I mean that's what I did from fourth grade through 10th grade.
Oh, wow.
Half the year in New York and half the year in Virginia.
So did you get to know some of the same kid? Like, were you going back to the same school in Virginia, or were you starting over every time?
No, it was, I mean, honestly, you remember that feeling um, that you had as a kid where you couldn't wait for school to start because you got to see all those friends that really didn't live like really close to you?
Mhm.
I got to do that twice a year.
Okay.
So we always moved back to our house in Buffalo. So I always went back to the school in Eden, which is where it was outside of Buffalo. And then we always moved back to Reston, Virginia, which is where the Redskins training camp was. Well, it was in Herndon. Um, we lived on only two streets. Every year we moved back to either the same house or the same street
Okay.
because of the fact that there was a lot of government people that had been and military people that might be overseas for a couple of years. So they would rent it out to us. And we, if they were still gone the next year, we rented it again. And then my parents rented our house in Buffalo to players that were coming into town to play for Buffalo because they'd be leaving when we'd be coming. So it just worked out. It just worked out good. Instead of the house sitting there for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Um, that wouldn't have been good. It's out in the country. It wouldn't have been good.
Yeah. Especially in Buffalo, you got to keep the pipes not frozen and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, we moved 1 year. Well, we moved back to Buffalo from Virginia right before the storm of 77. So we didn't miss it, unfortunately. We were there. Only time we ever missed school and all the years I ever went to school in New York. But that's because we had 15 feet of snow.
Wow.
So mom, I'll never forget it, was my brother's birthday, January 28th. And mom got stuck in Orchard Park for about 3 days. She finally paid somebody on a snowmobile to get her home because she's like, I got four kids at home, all under 14. It was like, I need to get home.
Yeah.
My dad was stuck on the interstate outside Buffalo, and he had, a Ford 150 with a plow in front because he lived in Buffalo. And he was running people to the hospital because people were on the side of the road keeping warm and dying of carbon monoxide poisoning because the snow was snowing so fast and piling up so fast that they didn't even realize that it was plugging their exhaust.
Oh no.
So dad was running people back and forth. He didn't come home for 4 days. I think it was 3 or 4 days. Mom got home first, and then dad was like right after.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it was. I don't miss Buffalo snow. Sorry, no, not at
Yeah.
all.
Now, are you a Bills fan now, or a Redskins, or a Commanders fan, or both, or
Well,
neither?
I'm a Redskins fan. I'm not a Commanders fan,
Okay.
but I am also a Bills fan. I mean,
Okay.
he played 8 years with each. Um, I'm sad that the Bills do not recognize anything before 1990. Like there's no other team before Jim Kelly and his crew came. I'm sad that they don't recognize. I mean, I guess this year they did on one game recognize some of the players from the 65 championship,
Mhm.
but my dad played on the only teams in Buffalo that ever won a championship.
Yeah.
But there's no mention of that.
Yeah, I think the 90s teams they were great, but they didn't win at all like those two 60s teams. So I think those guys should get a little more recognition. And George Butch Bird isn't even on the Wall of Fame. He still
My,
has their record for interceptions.
my
Uh,
dad's not on there either.
oh, he isn't?
Nope.
I thought he was. Oh, wow.
And I'm trying to get him on the wall in Buffalo, and I'm trying to get him on the ring in Washington because they're all surprised he's not there either.
Yeah,
So if they don't want to put my dad on there, then they definitely need to put the 64-65 defense
yeah,
because they still hold an NFL record
yeah, yeah.
today.
It was the defense that was the main thing. I know Tom Sestak is a very underrated guy that, nobody knows who this guy is, and yeah, yeah, like him and your dad and George Sames, some of those guys that should kind of be Buffalo household names.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, they should get a little more rec. Um, so and then so when you went to Washington, did you meet did you know like George Allen and stuff, or did you not?
Yeah. So obviously I knew all the kids because I babysat them all.
Hmm.
um, I went to school with this one of the coach's daughters, Tammy Lanham. Her father came with George from LA. Um, but George was the type of coach. My father loved George Allen. I mean, there was no ifs, ands, or buts. He loved the two coaches that he played for, the one in Buffalo and the one in Washington, where I mean, he couldn't have played for better people. And George was one of those coaches that knew everything and anything about his players, his parents, players' families, his players' kids, everything. So when they would talk, they wouldn't just talk football. Mostly they would talk football because George was a walking encyclopedia. But he knew everything about my family. My he knew my dad had four children. He knew where we went to school. He knew, I mean, he knew all of it. I met George a couple of times. The first time I met George, can't tell you what year it was, but the Redskins beat Chicago like 64-0 or something. I'm stupid like that.
Yeah.
The last game of the season. And George always had a Christmas event on the last day of the season for the family and the coaches and the families and all that sort of stuff. And I was sitting there, um, not knowing anybody because all the kids my age were coaches' kids, and I really didn't know the coaches' kids. The players and the coaches didn't really hang out. So he came up and sat down next to me, and he's just like, he goes, introduced himself. And I said, yes, I know who you are. Thank you. I think I was like 13.
Hmm.
And he was, asking me about school, and he was asking me about soccer, and he said, is there anything, he goes, is there anything I can do for you? And I said, well, every year the Redskin yearbook comes out, the press guide book that gives all the information on the players.
Hmm.
I said, and every year I'm in there as Tommy. Can
Oh
you
no.
please have them fix it to Tammy? Because I have three brothers, but my name is Tammy, not Tommy. He
Yeah.
goes, yes, I can. And he did.
Oh,
It got
nice.
fixed after that. But
Attention
yeah,
to detail.
he was just, I ran into him, shoot, years after dad retired at I think it was a fundraiser. Well, I know what it was. It was a flag football game against the Dallas Cowboys at RFK. So that tells you how old that was.
Yeah.
And afterwards, we were all hanging out and having a cookout or whatever. And he came up to me and knew exactly who I was, asked me about college. I mean, he was that type of a person.
Yeah.
And
I
that he
read
was that kind of person with with his players too.
cool. I read Deacon Jones's autobiography, and he had nothing but great things to say about George. Now I got to read your dad's book.
Oh, you
Uh,
got to read his book. You'll laugh. Deacon Jones was sitting at that Christmas party I was telling you about because he kicked the field goal.
oh wow.
And he was sitting there with his sock off, his shoe off, and his sock off, with his foot up on a chair, saying he was taking reservations for people to rub his magic toe. All the players were just characters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you had your group that hung out together, but they all got along. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody didn't get along. So
Cool.
it really was kind of like a big family, just like the Bills were. The
Yeah.
Bills were a little bit different in the fact that I liken the Bills back in that day of like being young Marines with their young families that all kind of helped each other out because they were all in the same situation and nobody was making any money and they all had little kids.
Hmm.
We did everything together. We hung out with the Kemps and we hung out with the B Millers and we hung out with the McGuires. I mean, they all had kids our age and, we just did family things together with them.
Yeah. Cool. 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 Now when he retired, was that like, was he kind of like choosing to retire, or did the Redskins say like, okay, you're done, or how did that happen?
That was again, they were rebuilding. They were bringing in, they kind of did him bad. They brought Jack Kemp in. I mean, not Jack Kemp, Jack Pardee,
Okay.
who was a family friend. We hung out with their family too. I mean, they had all, it was probably hard. It was not a good deal all the way around. You don't bring in a friend to fire friends. And that's
Mhm.
basically what they were doing. So George was gone. And I know Jack didn't have any say in it because he had no power, because where George was the general manager and the coach, Jack was just the coach. He
Okay.
didn't have any power whatsoever of who was staying and who was not.
And Pardee was a player for them, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
he was one of the
He
over the
came with
hill gang.
he came with George from the Rams
Okay.
to the Redskins. And that I mean the defense called him general. He was like having a live coach on the field because he
Yeah.
knew everything anyway. So but Dad was told by the player who replaced him that he wasn't playing, that the other guy was starting. That's how my father knew that he wasn't playing.
Oh.
So that wasn't good. He had the option. They weren't going to renew his option, is basically what it was.
Hmm.
He actually was picked up by the Giants. Um, they offered him a 1 year contract. We all said, we're not moving. We'll see you when the season's over. I was going to college, I mean,
Right.
so wasn't going to affect me. But my mom was just like, I'm not moving these kids. I had a brother that was a senior. I had a brother that was in seventh grade, one that was in eighth grade. And she's like, yeah, we're not moving to New York for the season. We'll just see you when you can come visit. And he was getting his business going, and he just decided that he would just stop playing. I mean, he was 40 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
just thought he'd go, he's like, phase two, let's go on to let's just get the business going. So
Cool. Cool. So did you I know you rubbed elbows with a lot of the kids. Did you rub elbows with any of the, star players like that Deacon Jones story is funny. Did you have any other stories about, some of the players, some of the coaches, any of that stuff growing up?
so Darren Talbert, um, who was my dad's roommate on the road and at camp and stuff like that, was single for most of the time that I knew him. He got married when I was like a sophomore in high school.
Uh,
He was a character. I mean, do you ever remember watching North Dallas 40, the movie?
uh, yes, but a long time ago.
So there was one scene where these guys were out drinking, shooting rifles, out hunting on top of a Cadillac. That was the Talbot brothers. That was Dyron's brothers.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but that was Dyron. That was, he was no filter, all out there teasing, loud, funny. He was just, but he would do stuff like he loved to pick on me. I don't know why he loved to pick on me, but he loved to pick on me. And I remember once, um, I had this little girl named Christy who was like my neighbor. I was going to go babysit and I wanted Christy to go with me. So I ran over to the house with Christy and asked my mom if Christy can babysit with me. And Darren was there and she was little. I mean, she was not a big girl at all. And Darren literally picked her up and held her to the ceiling and said, this little thing's going to babysit. And I'm sitting there going, Darren, put her down. Just put her down.
Yeah.
Just put her down. So he would do stuff like that. Another story that I thought was really funny, when we lived in Reston, Darwin was over. They were getting ready to play the Cowboys. A kid lived next door to me, was a huge Dallas fan. He's probably Mick and Tracy's age, so he's probably 9 or 10. And he came over in his Dallas Cowboy PJs and stood like in the front, foyer areas going, Dallas is going to beat you.
Oh no.
Dallas is going to beat you. So Darren picked him up and threw him out. And my mom's going, you can't go throwing kids around down there. He goes, well, he was annoying me. She goes, it doesn't matter. You can't throw kids out of the house. So
I agree with him on that one. I am not a Dallas
that was
fan.
pretty much Dyron though. But so yeah, I mean, so my dad's crew that he hung out with was Dyron, the Hosses, Lenny Haas, Billy Kilmer, Sonny Jurgensen, Jake Scott when he got there. That was pretty much the core group. Bill Brundage was a good family. He lived in our house when we moved to Winchester. Um, so that was probably the core group that he ran around.
Cool. Neat, neat. The book is titled, what's the title of your book?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that. Ron McDole, My Life in the Trenches of the AFL and NFL,
Okay, cool. And
or
his
something like that.
nickname was the Dancing Bear, right?
His nickname was the Dancing Bear. He
Do you
got
know
that when
how
he
he
went to
got that?
Yes, he was out with Darren and Billy and Sonny and all them down at some bar. I think it was the Pall Mall, is what it was called, in Georgetown. And my dad was a very, very, very good dancer. Um, but he was dancing. And Dyer and Sonny looked at him and goes, "Damn, McDole looks like a dancing bear." Sitting next to them, one table over, was the Monday Night Football announcers who were doing the games the next day, and they brought it into the booth, and the rest is history.
Oh wow, cool. That's great. I think it's amazing when these big guys are fast or nimble or like I don't know if you remember Ted Washington for the Bills. He weighed like 360,
Yeah.
but they all say he could dunk a basketball and he was very athletic and I think that's amazing.
Dad was, I mean, like if you looked at him, he had a beer belly. He was, when he played for Buffalo, he probably averaged about 300, 310. He laid less when he went to Washington because George made him weigh less. The team all had weigh-ins and they figured out how much he should weigh by his muscle mass, his age, his position, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And he says you need to weigh 265. And if you got 5 pounds over and 5 pounds under at weigh-in, which was always on Wednesdays, but if you were any way outside of those numbers, it was $100 a pound. So you bet your butt they all made weight. So I mean, but after a game, he could weigh 250 and then go out to dinner afterwards and put it all right back on. But um, that was always. I even remember as a kid going, "Oh, you're not fast. You're fast. You're too big." We're thinking we're smart ass little kids and we're running around. No, this man was fast. I mean, he was fast. He didn't do back then. You didn't do lifting weights. It wasn't a big thing. In fact, my father would not let us, my brother Tass and I, work out with weights because there wasn't a weight trainer there. There wasn't anybody there, and he did not want anybody. He didn't want us lifting weights unless there was somebody who knew what they were doing. So he didn't lift weights either. So they worked out by good old calisthenics. They ran, they did push-ups, they did sit-ups, they did sprints, and Dad played racquetball and handball. That's what he did. And that made his hand-eye coordination just so astronomically strong and the quick bursts. That's why, heck, he still has an NFL record today with 12 interceptions as a defensive lineman.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
that's just due to the fact that he was really quick. Now, if he had to run more than 10 yards, you were going to catch him. But quickly he could get to you.
Yeah, cool. Our time is just about up. My little counter's counting me down, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk about anything you're into, maybe more about the book, more about any businesses you're into, any hobbies, anything like that that you want to kind of plug or talk about.
Moved back to Virginia. My dad is still around. He does have dementia.
Mm.
He is physically healthy as a friggin' horse, but mentally he's nonverbal. We have him in memory care. He's been there for a while. Everybody asks if he has CTE. Nobody knows if you have CTE until you're dead. But you don't pay 18 years in the NFL, 4 years at Nebraska, and 4 years in college and not got your bell rung once or twice. However, he's doing really well. He's happy. He's we moved him up closer so we can all go and see him. But he's doing really, really well. He's funny. He makes me laugh, but he still makes me laugh. He's always made me laugh. So we're up here in Northern Virginia. I moved back because of that. When I moved back, he was still at home, and his wife, my mom, passed quite a few years ago. So he's remarried, and I wanted her not to be a caretaker by herself. So I moved home, which sucks because I don't do cold weather. I was moving to the Virgin Islands, but that's a whole nother story. But since I moved home, I started a company called Dancing Cub Farm. I grow microgreens and I grow vegetables and I make food with microgreens in it. Right now, I'm dancing with the state. My website should be live by the end of the weekend. My store won't be live until the state approves me, which should be in another month. Um, but it's something that I can do at home and I really, really enjoy it. I like microgreens and I like cooking, so it worked out perfectly.
Are
Um,
you the dancing cub since you're the offspring of the dancing bear?
yes, I've been the dancing cub for ever,
Okay.
ever. My email is a dancing cub. My license plate is the dancing cub. I'm never giving it up because one of my brothers will take it and I won't let them.
Yeah,
So I'm the dancing club. And I graduated in 79. So that worked out perfectly.
cool. Nice. All
So I
right.
matched his number, but he's doing really well. So I know that he used to do all the autographs and sign all types of autographs. He can't do it anymore. He can't sign autographs anymore. We don't even let him. We don't even give them to him because it would frustrate him too much.
Yeah.
But he's still around kicking. And when people talk to me about, say hi to him, I do. Not that he might not. He doesn't know who anybody is most of the time, but that's okay.
Yeah.
He thinks sometimes he thinks I'm my mom.
Yeah.
So the other day, his wife was trying to give him a kiss, and he kept looking at me. I'm like, Dad, it's okay. And I'm like, I said, I think he thinks I'm my mom, and he's kissing another woman. And I'm just like, because my parents were high school sweethearts since they were
Oh, okay.
13. So, they were together for a really long time. But he's doing really well. I am trying to get him on the Buffalo, and on the wall in Buffalo. I am trying to get him on the ring in Washington. Mark Mosley's going to help me with that one. Can't quite figure out who to get me to help him on the Buffalo one, but I'm still working on it.
Cool. Well,
I
good
think he
luck
should
with
be
that. I
there.
think he deserves it. And yeah, I really, really love talking to you. That was so
Thank you.
interesting to see your perspective. I've talked to a few players, but never a kid. So that was really interesting. Thanks so much for your
You're
time.
very welcome. You're
All
very
right.
welcome.
All right. Thanks so much. And you guys, whoever's watching this, go buy the book. And
You can
now
get
is
it
your,
on Amazon.
what's that?
You can get it on Amazon.
Okay, awesome. Yep, go check it out. I'm going to check it out for sure. And yeah, thank you so much, Tammy. I've got 22 seconds left, so I better do it before it cuts us off.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Tammy.
All right. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye.